Coach DiMarco, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time out of the day and, getting on here to chop it up a little bit and give the listeners a little bit of knowledge. So for the listeners at home, will you tell us a little bit about your background, your motivation, and kind of where you are currently?
Yeah. So, like you said, Nick DiMarco, I'm currently the Director of Sports Performance here at Elon University in Elon, North Carolina. We're FCS football program, then Division I for everything else.
Okay.
And a little bit more background. Originally from St. Louis, went to school at William Penn University in Oskaloosa, Iowa, small NAIA school. Had a chance to intern there and get a ton of experience being a smaller school. So I was actually able to train a few teams while I was there during my undergrad.
Yeah.
And in between my junior and senior year, back in what would have been 2013 summer, I interned at the University of Iowa with the football strength staff during the summer.
Okay.
And had a fantastic experience. Went back to school, finished playing football. And then once my football career ended, that next fall, Coach Doyle I was lucky enough that he gave me a call and asked that I'd come join the staff in January 2015. And
wow.
I was there for almost 3.5 years.
Okay.
Working with just football.
Yeah.
And from there, I was lucky enough just through a connection to get a chance to interview here at Elon and got the job back in March 1st of last year was my first day. So coming up on 1 year here.
Wow.
And then, motivation, I really fell in love with the field of, strength and conditioning, sports performance, whatever you want to call it. During my college experience, I didn't really know as a career.
Yeah.
I went there wanting to be maybe a PE teacher, coach, football, basketball, baseball, didn't really matter. I've always just liked sport.
Yeah.
And as soon as I met my strength coach, I was like, wow, I can be involved in sport, but also in the weight room, which is really my main passion.
Yeah.
So I've always just want to be great at something that I could enjoy and kind of give back to others.
I love it.
And then my wife, Brianne, and then my daughter, Olivia, who just turned 8 months yesterday, are my motivation for everything.
Okay, I love it. And so will you kind of expand a little bit about your time at Iowa and kind of some of the lessons you learned and some of your takeaways from there?
Yeah, absolutely. That was, the most beneficial part of my career, without a doubt. Working for Coach Doyle, he's always expressed every time he had an internship meeting when you first get there back in 2013. I vividly remember, if you want to make big money, offer something that money can't buy. And that is what he truly embodies. People see his salary and they're like, oh, why would you pay a guy at Iowa that much? But every year Iowa competes at a high level with lower level recruits because of the development that goes on. And they truly buy into the process of developing. And it all runs through Coach Ferentz and through Coach Doyle. And just his attention to detail is the most impeccable thing that he does.
Yeah.
Everything is ironed out. All the staff speaks the same language. It's not, a different coaching cue out of one coach and another guy has a different background. Everyone's always on the same page. And he provides a chance for autonomy within the staff. You can always speak out and have your opinion heard. He listens. He wants to learn. He doesn't want a bunch of guys who are just yes men and agree with everything he says. He wants you to voice your opinion, and then once we go from there, everyone is on the same page, no matter what conclusion we come to. But outside that, and then just his most important thing was always developing positive relationships. The time with the athletes is the most important thing. Like, us as a staff always get the most time with the athletes. I think that's what most people gravitate towards this field for, is because of the time you get with them instead of being out recruiting or anything like that. And just truly investing, like, when we're on the floor with athletes, we're not on our phones. It's not a social media time. Your attention is not anywhere else. You don't stand in the corner with your hands on your hips. You're just fully bought into maximizing those hours that you have with the kids.
Okay. No, I really like that. And then also to touch back on some of your background, right? So you had a stint with the NFL, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very brief, though.
Okay. Will you kind of touch on some of the things that you learned there and that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I went to William Penn, In Iowa, I was 190 pounds, wannabe safety, just a kid who I was always decently athletic and played a lot of sports, but never really played a ton of football until high school, or organized football until high school.
Okay.
And when I went to college, I was small. I probably got by every day on eating a Pop-Tart and would go home and maybe eat dinner, but I'd be out playing all day, and I was just super skinny. I liked to train, but I wasn't, overly committed to training every day by any means, because I usually played sports year round. But as soon as I got to college, my strength coach, Ike Hammerly, has had the biggest impact on my life outside of anyone besides maybe my mom and dad. And for him, it was just I'm not a huge mental toughness guy by any means, but the discipline and the life habits that he instilled in all the athletes, and if you bought into it, I think it could really change your life, and I think that's what changed mine. I was a pretty bad student in high school, didn't have a whole lot going for me, and he just was a fantastic mentor. And getting a little bit sidetracked, but obviously my path to the NFL wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a great strength coach, and that was really the lesson of just if you truly commit to something for 4.5 years and you're not a guy who's out partying on the weekends, you're just truly committed to what you're doing, then you can make just massive strides, because every single year there's 5-star recruits coming out of high school that don't make the NFL, and there's 0-star guys coming out of high school that do make the NFL. And I can assure you it's not because of talent. So I would just say the biggest lesson is, the ability to have grit and consistently work over a long period of time, and you can reach pretty much any goal. Obviously, there is a certain level of genetics that comes into play, but I guess I can thank my parents for that, but also, just the ability to keep working through things is invaluable.
I like that. Okay. And then one of the things that I found interesting is kind of the content that you put out on social media, right? So I think it's a lot of really cool stuff. And so will you kind of expand on your training philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. So our basic philosophy all stems from the same tree. My college strength coach went to Central College, which is kind of like the Springfield College of the Midwest. A lot of great strength coaches come out of there. Jeff Jones went there, the new football director at App State, where you're at. Dustin Bethke at Missouri. I could name a whole lot of guys. John Haugen at William Penn now. But everyone there had Jake Anderson as their strength coach, and he is now in Turkey teaching strength and conditioning to some extent. But he worked for Coach Doyle on his staff in the early 2000s. And so we've all kind of, from Central College, William Penn, the guys that have come out of there, all already kind of fell under that Coach Doyle tree and learning philosophy. And obviously most of what he does stems from Mike Boyle, who was his college strength coach and his greatest mentor, him and Joe Moore. So everything's really come from his kind of background. And, some of those people along the way are still heavy back squat people, but for us, we are, one of the few places where what we believe in is we don't do any back squatting, any front squatting even. We do trap bar deadlifts. We'll do some belt squats, but we're a heavy unilateral group. We still do some of the Olympic lifts. Our general philosophy is take everything that we think is valuable and put it together into one program. So we're not really married to, I'm a triphasic guy, or I'm only a Boyle guy. Anything that we find of value, we really just try and take it and put it together. But our general program is all about long-term athlete development. So we progress guys based off their training age, and our first years are, just basic linear program on a pretty straightforward Mike Boyle split. Not a whole lot of variation to the movements. We just want them to master the basic stuff, which is their landing mechanics have to be perfect for us. The ability to split squat, trap bar deadlift. We like guys to be able to clean effectively, but again, we're not overly married to certain stuff. So if a guy can't, we'll do clean pulls and pair it with a altitude drop to still get that force absorption you get from the catch. But we're just trying to master basic movement patterns at that point. And then as we progress, our team guys are more of a vertical integration. We'll run waves, block, whatever you want to call it, but we just try and keep everything in the program throughout the year. And we'll try and advance our movements a little bit, but still stem from our basic movement patterns. and progress as guys can. And then eventually, we've only been here about a year with our staff. We'd like to have an advanced card for, year 5 to 10 guys who truly need some new movements, constant variety, and maybe some true block periodization work, because our goal is over the 4 years to keep progressing. And I think a lot of people want to progress too fast, and they get guys at plateau because you have nothing new to throw at them. But we don't want to throw anything new at a guy just for the sake of it. I forget. I think it was the Kier Wenham Flat said, "Don't use a hand grenade when a fly swatter can work." So I kind of go by that concept. We just try and do the minimal effective dose needed, and then continue from there once a guy kind of stalls out.
Interesting. Okay. So with that philosophy of the no front squats, back squats, so with your clean progression, then how does that play into a clean? Are you doing power catches, or how does that look?
So we address mobility in a front squat position consistently, because we do barbell complex anytime that we perform a clean. So they're still hitting front squats, just not under heavy load. We're talking 95 pounds or something. But I think it is a good movement pattern to have. We hit a lot of goblet squats. But we work that front rack mobility, and we're always doing a form of bilateral squat. We just don't load it in a front or back squat position. But all of our cleans, we're not huge on doing, a full clean where we're dropping into a front squat. Everything we do is usually a power clean, whether it's from the hang or from the floor. We're always catching that power position. And so we usually work from, the top-down approach, somewhat USAW-ish, high hang down to hang. And most of our skill guys just stay from the hang. Some of our line guys, if they perform it well, will work down to the floor.
Gotcha. And then with that philosophy, one more question on that, right? So may I ask your rationale as far as the no bilateral loading?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was a huge back squat fan. As a player, I felt like, anyone who's a strength coach usually is probably somewhat of a meathead to an extent when they were an athlete. I loved the clean, loved the squat. I mean, I've done any challenge out there, squatting every day for 50 days, whatever it may be. And I've never had back pain while squatting. I feel like I squat with pretty good technique. I've always been a mobile guy. But I know a ton of people who have had back pain, hip pain, whatever it is from the heavy loads of back squatting. And so at one point I was like, I back squat plenty of weight. I'm just going to try a straight single leg phase, see what happens. And I was testing my main KPIs of like 10-yard dash, 40, broad jump, things like that. Just experimenting with myself, and then another assistant at Iowa, Mark Weissman. We tried it out for about a 4-month phase or so. And the performance changes were drastic. Like, I ran a lifetime PR. I jumped a lifetime PR in the vertical and broad jump. And I never put a bar on my back, obviously. Part of me was like, well, I had the requisite strength already, double leg, so maybe I do need back squat early, and then you don't need it later on. But this past year we did it with our freshmen, and we have had some massive gains. Like, guys have gone from, and any freshman who comes on campus, you can get their vert better because they get stronger. I mean, that's always easy. But we haven't had a single injury based off of lifting from, and everywhere else I've been, if you're squatting, you're always going to have one guy who has bad technique, and you're always fighting, to get guys to get to parallel. And I see a lot of programs doing it well, and it makes me think, oh man, should we front squat? Like, I see Texas Tech and like Joey Berglis and those guys, and they're just squatting to the basement. It looks amazing. But I always go back to Mike Boyles of just the risk reward, and everything in sport primarily is done either asymmetrically or unilaterally. And I've seen a ton of 600-pound squatters who cannot split squat 315. I've never seen a guy who could split squat 315 and was really weak on 2 legs. It just doesn't really happen. And the carryover, and a lot of like the studies now, a lot of people's arguments originally, mine included, when I thought, unilateral stuff was kind of a dumb idea, was the hormonal response. And, well, you have to lift something heavy to get that hormone response. And most of the research I've read recently actually indicates that just because the total tonnage, if you do 315 on one leg for 3 and then the other leg, actually equates to a higher total load volume, you're actually getting an increased hormonal response. So at that point, it's like, okay, I can get stronger on a single leg, which makes me stronger on two legs. My spine's in a stacked position. I'm never really overloading it. So you kind of take out that shear force on the spine, and it's just less load because you're never going to get to what you could do on one leg on two legs. And I've seen greater enhancements in performance and just the reduction of injuries. Guys' hamstrings are a lot stronger when you're on a single leg. And I really haven't found a huge negative from it, especially if it's not like we've aborted, double leg training by any means. We still do heavy trap bars, but the load's not on your spine. It turns it into just a safer squat, essentially, in my opinion.
Okay.
We still belt squat. We'll sprinkle those in, and you can go really heavy, and without the load on the back, I think you get better rate of force development on those and might actually have more carryover. So it's just kind of been a long experiment, and I avoided what Mike Boyle said for a long time, I think just out of ego and, well, that's not what a tough guy would do. But I think if we're just trying to do what's best for the athlete, at this point in my career, which maybe a couple years from now I'll change my mind, I think it's the best option.
Okay. Will you ever get any pushback from athletes that want to do different exercises or things like that they've used to doing in the past, or how does that look?
We honestly haven't. The big thing that we try and do as a staff, though, is when we teach something, we're always teaching why we do it.
Gotcha.
Obviously, everyone's read Probably Starts with Why by Simon Sinek. And, if we know why we're doing it, people buy into it greater. And we really haven't had any kickback because guys have gotten better at their KPIs. And they, just asking guys, hey, do you feel better? The general consensus is yes. There's not a whole lot of guys who, I'd say there's fewer guys who are really fired up for back squats than not. I think a lot of people come in, they see back squats, and they're like, so. And I get the, psychological element, you could say, of, well, there's something about putting a heavy load on your back. Well, if we're in a tempo phase and we're doing eccentrics with a split squat, I would argue there's just as much psychologically going on there. It's very tough to hold a 5-second pause at the bottom, or
that's no fun.
I don't think the grit score from the back squat is outweighing the risk associated with it. Okay,
fair enough. And then kind of moving forward with that, right? Will you kind of touch on your approach to like balance and proprioception training across sports?
Yeah, so we don't do a ton of I don't think we'd necessarily call anything like true balance or proprioception training necessarily. But within our plyos, so we go pretty much a high-low sequence and try to with all of our teams. And that's been something that we're kind of building on, but we'd like to go a true 5-day high-low, with Wednesday being a recovery day. And Monday, Thursday being our low days, with Tuesday, Friday being the high. Just because a lot of guys come out of the weekend and you think on Monday you're going to run fast, and you never really do because they haven't really had any nervous system stimulation. Anyway, that'd be the main setup. But on our Mondays and Thursdays, being low days, we do a ton of landing mechanics at very low amplitudes, and our whole goal is just to kind of perfect those positions, but expose them to a large variety of movement. And so everything we do is more frontal plane, transverse plane, anything we can do multi-directional and get them to land effectively on double leg or single leg. We really put a huge emphasis on those days. Also on those days, we start in the weight room, and we'll always start on Monday and Thursday with a barefoot mobility prep, and it's not necessarily everything is geared towards being barefoot, but we'll do our basic, what we call a mountain climber series. We'll do a stick mobility. We just do it barefoot, and I think if you start from the ground up, almost nobody, I know Jeff Jones, I already mentioned him, he's a huge guy, and he kind of put me on to just spending some time to train the foot. And most of the balance issues I see, if you're doing a FMS or anything like that, and you see a guy who's got a ton of collapse at the knee, what I've noticed just anecdotally is it's really a collapse at the arch. And most of those guys who have no control are either flat-footed and, they get that arch collapsing in, and then it just works its way up the entire chain. So for us, at the end of each, mobility prep on Monday and Thursday, we're also adding in some barefoot holds and just teaching guys kind of that sort of short foot position, but within some dynamic movements, whether it's lunges or just a 20-second hold on a single leg, a 20-second hold with hip flexion, 20-second hold into a RDL position. But just getting them to learn how to strengthen the foot. And then we'll do some like toe lift and spray just to get the foot functioning and out of their shoes for just a little bit of time. And on those same days on the back end of the lift, paired with a few posterior shoulder exercises or something in our last series, we'll always add in like a slant board hold. We'll call it uphill or downhill. So if your big toe's facing downhill, that'd be like slant board downhill. And just getting them up on the toes, holding positions and trying to strengthen the foot and the arch a little bit. And, it doesn't take any time away from our training. It's just kind of something that we filled in to those last series on those days. And then in our mobility, we were always doing RDLs and things like that, basic movement patterns of hinges or bridges, stance holds. And we just added the element of take your shoes off, and instead of just passively standing there, try and grip the ground with your foot. And I think that's made a pretty big impact, along with our landing mechanics stuff. And just going on Monday, we'll go double leg, and again, pretty low level, but expose them to multi-directions. And on Thursdays, we focus on single leg and usually hops, but we'll mix in some bound variations. And again, everything is just learning to stick and land in good positions and have that strength from the foot all the way up. And in our basic performance prep, we'll do which we do on Mondays and Thursdays. On Tuesdays and Fridays, when we start on the field, we just do more of a dynamic warm-up, get a sweat going, get ready to run. But on our Mondays and Thursdays, we'll do a mobility prep barefoot. We'll then go into, we usually operate with like 3 stations and kind of split the groups into thirds. And one day we'll do a kettlebell, one day we'll do a landmine, one day we'll do an upper body band sequence, the other day we'll do a lower body band sequence. And then one day we'll do an upper body mini band sequence, and the other day we'll do a lower body mini band sequence. And so we just try and mix those in, and each week the movements will change, but we're just trying to hit basic movement patterns that will help mobility long term, and just get better activation. And we do some mixed in like extreme iso holds, or just getting strong in end range positions, and try and make our performance prep, most people just call warm up, something valuable long term, because you spend so much time doing it. If you look at how much time over time that it accumulates to, it's it's so much time that sometimes people waste. So exactly. And like Ryan Horn put out a great post on it, I think it was like a year ago, of if you spend all your time at practice, he had the exact hours that you spend warming up. And most people just treat it like you said, like, oh, let's hit some jumping jacks, get their heart rate going, oh, now they're sweating. For us, we're trying to implement some, FRC concepts, some Kelly Starrett band distraction concepts, some micro-dosing in, some strengthening, and just other mobility of basic movement patterns to try and create some long-term change versus spending 5 minutes just to get a sweat going. We'll spend 10 to 12 minutes and try and get some valuable work done.
No, I like that. Okay. And with any of that, have you had any trouble with coaches in implementing some of that? Because I know in certain situations, not all coaches are receptive to some of that kind of stuff,
Yeah, honestly, we've been very fortunate here. We haven't had any kickback from any of our coaches on like, hey, our team has to back squat, or there's been no absolutes from really any coaching staff that we've worked with. We've had a couple who are, I won't name any names or anything, but like, hey, why don't we run long distance? Or why don't we get out some foot ladders? And, and foot ladders get a bad rap. I think it's a decent warm-up tool. I don't think it's an agility ladder by any means, which I get why people hate on it. And, the long distance running, like just go out and jog for a 100% anaerobic sport has never really made sense. But, sports coaches kind of hold true to their beliefs of what they did and things of that nature. But for us, again, it comes back to, we don't just try and educate the athletes. When we sit down with the coaches at the beginning of each phase, we try and explain why we're doing it. And if you show them you understand, and none of us by any means understand the demands of the game the way the sports coach does through their lens, but they don't understand the game to the extent that we do through our lens of what are the energy system demands, what are the key movement patterns, what do they have to be strong at? Because when I look at a game, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking at as much of the technical and tactical skills like they would.
Yeah.
And so just trying to educate them and create some buy-in from them as well. And another, if you get buy-in from the athletes and they're telling their coaches how great something is being done by one of the strength coaches, then I think it just creates buy-in all the way through, and that's not easy to do, but it just takes time.
That makes sense. Okay. And then moving forward with training, right, will you touch a little bit on your approach to patterning and some of your movement variation and development?
Yeah, so we start with very basic movement patterns for everything. Our main movements, like I said, are within the weight room, really the clean, the split squat, trap bar, some sort of pull-up variation, usually like a neutral grip or a chin-up, and some sort of a bench press, whether it's dumbbell, barbell. It doesn't matter a whole lot, but just teaching those movements very effectively, along with the hinge. We want to be perfect, whether it's a single leg, double leg, but really just breaking everything down those first couple weeks into essentially no loading, just a lot of barbell complexes, learn the movement until you can perform the movement effectively. We're not going to add a whole lot of weight to anything. And some people like to preach those things, and then they kind of get ego involved and just start throwing weights on. And if you can't move well, we're not going to add any weight to it at all. And do we have everyone moving perfect? Absolutely not. I don't. If anyone says they do, I think they're lying. I think the closest people I've seen is the guys at Texas Tech now.
They do a great job. Yeah,
and I mean nobody's showing you their videos of bad reps either. But we're just trying to get as much movement efficiency as possible. And on the field, that's teaching them our basic linear running mechanics, our lateral running mechanics, our landing mechanics, and then we don't train agility and change of direction as like a progression. It's not like, you have to do a 5-10-5 perfect before you can be exposed to agility. It's our belief that it's two completely separate qualities. We progress each independently.
Okay.
And so we'll do some change of direction work. We're not doing a ton of closed drills. We'll just do 5 yards with a push to move step or a crossover step, bucket step, and break. Teach guys to stop effectively. And we'll progress to different angles, whether it's a 90-degree cut, 45, 180 right back at you, whatever it is. We'll just increasingly progress the intensity of each cut, and then with our agility, it's we'll start one-on-one in a very small space and continue to progress closer to game scenarios. But everything is just starting out very, very vanilla, so to speak, and progressing at the rate that is necessary. And really within the weight room, we don't gain a ton of complexity. We try and hit our things that will make you a little bit more robust, whether it's, training multi-planar, just exposing them to a lot of new things in our performance prep. We try and keep our lift very straightforward. And then on the field, we'll get a little bit more complex with our agility work, change of direction, linear speed. There's not a whole lot that needs to be complex about that. It's short to long, it's heavy to light if we're doing anything resisted. If we're doing flies, we start short and progress our length. And as guys get older and they've adjusted to movements, we definitely want to provide some consistent variety. And a big thing for us, too, and within our performance prep is just trying to make stuff fun at the end of it. I think if your athletes like training, then it'll be a lot more valuable experience than if every day they come in and they hate it and it's punishment. I don't think you're getting a whole lot out of it.
No, that makes sense. Okay. And then you touched on your lateral. You said you did some lateral running mechanics. Will you touch on that and then also your approach to plyometrics?
So the lateral running mechanics, I've seen a lot of people where, I don't know what you want to call it, but we just start with a basic sway back and forth, teach them where their weight needs to be when they're changing direction. And we've really gone towards a lot of external cueing based on Nick Winkelman stuff. But when we teach something for the first time, we try and make it more internal and feel and teach the exact positions we want. But then when we cue things as we're coaching, we try and make it more external, if that makes sense. So when we start out, it's always, just teaching guys how to get their hips down, what their hips open means. If you're trying to change direction and go to my left, I can't have my left foot in front of my right, or I'm going to round off my turn. So just very slowly teaching them those things at a slow, controlled pace. And, I think the easiest thing for us is we always teach guys, if you're changing direction, which is completely stolen from Coach Dole, turn it into a 3-point stance, basically. When I touch and I pivot, if my hand's not touching the ground, I'm basically in a 2-point stance. I just want to turn every change of direction into that. And does that stuff carry over to the field 100%? No, but I don't think it's ever going to hurt a guy to be able to change direction well. I think a lot of guys change direction well, and they don't react well. So change of direction gets a bad rap from the people who are true agility guys. But I think they're just poor reactors. I think if a guy can change direction well and you simultaneously improve his agility, you're going to get the biggest takeaway out of it. But the bulk, probably 80% of what we do is more agility-based than change of direction. Our change of direction is kind of an extension of our dynamic warm-up. And just kind of prefaces our agility work for each day. But after that, we'll also teach athletes how to push to move and cover ground. We'll teach basic shuffle. So we'll start with just a basic march into a resisted march, teach them where their weight needs to be, ankle or the knee inside of the ankle, really pushing off that back foot. We'll teach a bucket step and a crossover step. And I'm not huge on they have to do one step if they're changing direction. Like everyone, false steps can be faster, same as a crossover step can be faster than a push to move if you are better at that. So we just try and teach them different strategies for how to do it effectively and let them pick the solution that works for them.
Okay. No, I like that. And then is the progression for Plyo similar to how you do your running stuff?
So the Plyo, sorry, I forgot to touch on that.
Oh, no worries.
The Plyos, we'll always start with our landing mechanics stuff first, and we keep that in really all the time because most guys, from what we've seen, is if you can absorb force more effectively, you're going to be able to apply force more effectively. Most of the guys are failing on that eccentric action most of the time. They don't load overly great. So we always start there, but we separate our Plyos into jumps, bounds, and hops. So jumps, double leg to double leg, bounds, single leg to opposite single leg, and then our hops, single leg to the same single leg. And we'll hit all three categories on our Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then we have a multi-category. So we usually do 2 per day. And on the multi ones, that can be a jump to a hop or a hop to a jump, any category like that, or it can be a vertical into a horizontal, because we also separate from horizontal and vertical as well. So we try and hit something horizontal for jumps each week, something vertical for jumps each week, and just kind of mix those things in. And with that, we probably get the most variety. Like every Tuesday and Friday, we test some sort of jump, and we'll rank them, we'll post them, make them competitive on the jump mat. And Tuesdays, we're usually looking at, we'll start with just a basic squat jump. And we'll go to our more, we'll go from static to dynamic and higher forces as we go. So ending with depth jumps, whatever it may be. On Fridays, we usually do some sort of loaded jump variety, just as our ground-based explosive for that day anyway, instead of Olympic lifting. So we'll do trap bar jumps from a static position, dumbbell jumps, counter movement, trap bar, whatever it may be, but just something competitive to get maximal intent.
Okay. I like that. And then what's your approach to managing your staff?
So our staff, my biggest thing is just providing them with a lot of education as a group and, continued education, along with as much autonomy as possible while we're all on the same page. So we all operate within the same system. And I don't want to hire anyone who is the exact same as me. There's some staffs where it's like, hey, a bunch of bald guys with beards. And I can say that because I'm a bald guy with a beard. But who all have the same personality. For us, we want different personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses, so we can all kind of work together to make the best team possible versus a bunch of guys with the exact same thoughts. And so right now, we just had a guy, Jake Niederman, leave to go to the University of Minnesota. He was our head sports performance coach, but then we have Cameron Ringstead, who came from Springfield College, Brandon Robinson, who came here from Harvard, Jordan Newsma, who came here from the University of Minnesota and Wisconsin as an intern, and then John Waters, and he was an intern at the University of Iowa when I worked there. And all fantastic people. That's the thing I care about most, is just getting great people to where you don't have to worry about what they're doing on a daily basis, you know. But it was in 59 Lessons I just read by Fergus Connolly, and it was train everyone to leave and treat them well enough that they want to stay. So that'd be like my mission statement, so to speak, of so we kind of do things a little bit different. As Elon, as a group, we're launching a peak performance team, which is like a high performance model, which William and Mary's done. So there's a few FCS teams that'll be doing it, but our kind of goal is to operate a little bit more effectively. And again, it's from that same book. Know a lot about a little, and a little about a lot, which is basically strength and conditioning. Like, you can't know a ton about everything. Like, there's certain guys who have their niche and they're really smart at that. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to put together is, you know, like Jordan is the most innovative, knowledgeable guy I've met. And his agility stuff, his conditioning stuff is very next level in my opinion. So that's his niche. Every week when we meet as a staff, he will present some sort of research or book review. He found a movement on Instagram, doesn't matter, but he'll do something, present something that can help our entire program in his domain. John is our sports science guy. Brandon does our strength and resilience stuff within the weight room. Cameron does our nutritional stuff. And I might have missed somebody. Jake left. But so we each have our own domains, and actually within our titles, it's like assistant sports performance coach, director of speed and power. Whatever they are in charge of, that's really their niche. And we will, when we sit down as a staff to talk about our programming, that guy kind of leads the way in that area. And then I just kind of have my fingerprints on a little bit of everything. And I'm the guy that tries to know as much as I can about everything, but I fail like everyone else who tries to do that. But so we have weekly staff meetings once or twice a week, depending upon our schedules. Obviously, it's a little bit harder when you're not a football-only staff, and we have 16 sports here on campus, so our schedules are a little bit conflicting sometimes. But we'll meet with our interns once a week as a part of their continuing education, and we have a curriculum for them. And then, just like them, we have our own continuing education that we're doing every week. So currently, we bought books for everyone on staff, and they all read their books, come back with anything of value that can help us. And if we all read a different book, it's like we take in 6 different books instead of all of us reading 6 of them. But everything that we do is just trying to increase our education and increase what we're doing for the athletes. And as far as training, anytime we start a new phase, we just are starting this now. You have to present your program in front of the staff for your team and defend it, and we'll try and make as many changes as we can and not have ego be a part of what we're doing, just have doing the things that are best for the athletes be what's our priority.
Okay, I really like that. And then what kind of separates you from others that work in this vocation?
I don't know if there's anything positive in that category, I guess. But I would just say I've always been someone who's very eager to learn and not afraid to fail at things. Like, you know, there's not a whole lot of people that are willing to try new things sometimes just from that's what we've always done mentality. And maybe sometimes we jump at things too early. But I'd like to say that a strength of mine is being able to be not so much an innovator, but just like an early adapter. And if I see something that's good, I like to think that I can recognize that and implement it in a simple way. And I think everything we do as a staff is all about really just trying to be as simple as possible with complex things. And you don't have to make things hard, make things simple for the athletes and really just buy into building relationships with them.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. What are some resources that have had a big impact on you, whether that's like a book or a podcast or a conversation or experience?
I think experience is the number one thing. I mean, everyone sees things through a different lens based off of their experience, obviously, and everyone's perspective is different, even if they go through what you would think is the same experience. But I think experience is number one without a doubt. you learn so much from making mistakes within your own training and coaching people. And I was lucky at a young age to be able to start coaching people. And if I took a program from 5 years ago that I wrote and implement it today, I'd probably fire myself. So I think just trying to consistently get better, but I love to read and try and read at least 10 pages a day, like the Slight Edge stuff. But I would say from nonfiction books, Andy Andrews' The Traveler's Gifts, my favorite book I've ever read.
Okay.
The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, and then training wise, Mike Boyle's newest functional training one is fantastic. He's the best in my opinion at taking complex stuff and making it really simple. And he's not afraid to express his opinion, which I love. Super Training, everyone talks about is a classic. I love Isrin's Block Periodization just because I think that's a absolute must know, just the residual training effects, even if you're not using block periodization. And then Charlie Francis's stuff are kind of some of my go-tos. But I'm always trying to learn new stuff, and I really think even Twitter and Instagram, if used effectively, are huge resources.
Agreed.
Currently. There's so much great stuff out there if you're not following accounts just for the sake of following them. You're trying to learn. You can use it as a really good resource. And then each day on my commute, I try and listen to a podcast. I've listened to yours. I listen to Just Fly, Historic Performance, Pacey Performance, Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, anything of interest. I just try and learn from it. And Coach Doyle said it best. It was, you're always learning. And so you don't have to have a great mentor to learn. You can have a terrible mentor and learn a lot. You're just learning what not to do instead of what to do. So I think there's always a learning experience to be found.
I love that. Okay. And then moving into this last segment, just a quick segment with a few rapid fire questions. And so the first question being, what are some quotes that you live by if you have any?
Number one would be from The Traveler's Gift, Andy Andrews: the ultimate outcome of anyone's life is a matter of personal choice. And I always follow that up with Larry Wingett's quote from Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life. He said, if your life sucks, it's because you suck, which is a little bit blunt and to the point, but it's really just, no matter, I was a terrible student in high school. I had like a 1.8 GPA, and now, I just completed my comprehensive exam for my PhD, and, what changed? Nothing besides my attitude towards what I was doing, if you it's all about what you put in. So I've always loved those things. Your circumstances are one thing, but it's really just, the cliche of how you respond to them, but it's so true. Okay.
And then is there a thought, I think you kind of answered this, so actually I'm going to skip this one. I was going to ask an experience, but you talked about the Doyle experience, so I think that kind of responds to that one. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
I'd say a couple things, like, do what you love and the money will come is one thing that Coach Doyle always said, which is, everything's taken from some sort of book with most intelligent people that and, I think a lot of people get caught up in the argument of, is it okay for strength coaches to want to make money? Absolutely. But if you love what you're doing and you can make enough to provide for your family, I think that's better than making a ton of money. But obviously if you are really good and indispensable at what you do, then you're going to make good money. And then, a coaching cue that Ike Hammerly, my college strength coach, always said was figure it out. And I've always loved that. It's just general advice, whether it's, sometimes you just got to learn for yourself, figure it out.
No, agreed. And then in contrast to that, what's the worst advice you've ever been given?
I would say right back to Ike Hammerly. He told me, I think you should really focus on just being a PE teacher. Like, I think you'll be a great strength coach, but it's a hard profession. And, I've never wanted any part of that. And he might have just been joking to try and get me to work hard, but I think he meant it too. Obviously, because if you're a small school strength coach, you're probably not making a ton of money. But I think there's a lot of great jobs out there. You just got to work hard and get in the right situations to be able to find one.
Agreed. And then last question here. What are some projects that you're currently working on, and how can people kind of reach out to you and follow your journey?
Anyone can follow us on my personal Instagram or Twitter, which I think if you just look up Nick DiMarco, you'll be able to find it somewhere. But I don't put out a whole lot on mine, honestly. But Elon Performance, Elon Sports Performance on Twitter, Instagram. We try and use it not as like a constantly putting Instagram stories and
Yeah.
Instagram pictures of our athletes training. We
Yeah.
like that because they like it. They like to get a shout out. But really, we just want to use it as education for
Yeah.
athletes, coaches, anyone who can benefit from it, and just kind of, I feel like it's a field that's given so much to me, and I feel like our staff feels the same way. So just try and put good education out there for anyone. And if people think it's bad, that's fine.
Yeah.
They don't have to follow us.
Fair enough. Awesome. Well, Coach.
But
go ahead.
other
Sorry.
Projects,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Yeah. Go ahead.
For my dissertation, I'm going to do a study on just comparing a Olympic lifting program 4 times a week versus a non-Olympic lifting program.
Yeah.
Strictly some ground-based explosive, whether it's med ball throws, weighted jumps, depth jumps, whatever it may be, and then a group that's doing both simultaneously across all of our teams here on campus.
Okay.
And just kind of see what results we get. I was a competitive Olympic lifter for a brief time when I got done, and again, it's one of those lifts I've always loved, but just trying to experiment and see if it's necessarily the right thing or not.
Yeah.
So hopefully get that done by December. And once I graduate, there's a lot of other projects that I have in mind. I think there's a big disconnect between researchers and coaches, practitioners. Currently, there's a lot of people doing good stuff, though, and I failed to mention them earlier, like JB Marin, Max Schmarzo, the Strong by Science guy.
Most definitely,
puts out a lot of good stuff. I'm still probably missing people, but there's a lot of valuable. I'll butcher his name, but Tim Samakel, or not sure how to pronounce his name, but he does all the weightlifting derivatives. There's some really good coaches out there doing some valuable research, and I think that's a step that I would like to take and attempt to bring stuff of value back to the field.
I love it. And that article that you're going to be writing, that sounds really interesting as well. So whenever that comes out, we'll have to share that too. So
absolutely.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you so much for your time. This has been great. I love getting to hear what other schools are doing and what other professionals are doing. So once again, this has been fantastic to connect, and hopefully we can connect again soon in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.